All right, beautiful people. So, with what we're doing today, we are starting on well, we're looking at some questions that are a little bit more involved while we are looking at the skill for getting more into dividing fractions. And I want to show you a surefire strategy to kind of sort out your problems. A big part of our standard is understanding what the numbers in your problem stand for. We're supposed to interpret the solution, so when you're solving, you got to know what it is. You got to know what you have to split, what do you need to do with it, and then whatever you get is going to be however many times your divisor goes into your dividend. So always, what you're splitting is your dividend. That is the bigger number most of the time. Now, it could be different if it's a fraction, but the dividend is divided by another number. It's what's being split. Your divisor is basically how you are splitting it. We're trying to see how many times the divisor goes into the dividend. And your quotient is the answer that you get when you take your dividend and you split it by your divisor. You get an answer left over. Now, on some of these questions, there's some kind of higher level thinking questions that have extra questions that they're kind of trying to mess with your head. And I want to go over a couple of them so you can see and know how to do number 12 and 13 when you get to them in lesson 3.3. So let's look at the problem that I have here on my screen. It says the table shows the ingredients needed to make one batch of salad dressing. A chef has 3 tablespoons of garlic. She made the greatest number of whole batches possible. How much garlic remained? What that means is how much of the garlic that you're using is left over after you're dividing what you have, the 3 tablespoons, by what you need. So when you look at it and you understand what those values mean, if I look at what I have here, here's my recipe: 1 cup of oil, 3/4 of a cup of vinegar, and 2/3 of a tablespoon of garlic. It tells me that I have 3 tablespoons of garlic. So that's what I'm splitting, the 3 tablespoons. How much do I need? Well, the problem says I need 2/3 of a tablespoon. So that's, the 3 is what I'm splitting, the 2/3 is how I'm splitting it, or what I need for the recipe. So if I take that problem and I write it down, I have 3. It's being divided by 2/3. And anytime you have a division problem with a fraction in it, you are always, no matter what, going to multiply by the reciprocal. So I always write it down, even if it's in front of me, because then I go through the process of writing it to multiply by the reciprocal. Remember, the reciprocal is the number that you can multiply any number by to get 1. So basically, you're just flipping it. So if we follow the protocols for multiplying by the reciprocal, it's basically the same thing as your keep, change, flip. Our 3 stays the same. We're going to multiply this time, and the reciprocal, think reciprocal or fliprical, you flip it, is 3/2. So when I multiply that, 3 times 3 is 9, and that would be the same as 3/1. 1 times 2 is 2. You just multiply across the numerator and the denominator. And 9/2 is equivalent to, let's see, 2 goes into 9 4 times, that's 8. 9 minus 8 is 1, so that would be 4 1/2. Now, what this answer tells me is I am going to make 4 complete recipes, but that 1/2 that I left over, that's how much of what I need to make the recipe that is left over. So if we look back at our recipe, the garlic is 2/3 of a tablespoon. So I have 1/2 of the 2/3. So to solve or to figure out how much of what I need is left over, I take my original amount, which was the 2/3 that I need, and because it's how much of what you need is left over, or how much garlic remained, that's going to be times the amount that was left on the fraction of the 4.5, and that's going to be what is half of 2/3. So 2 times 1, wait a minute, 2, half of 2/3. Of means multiply, so that's what I need for each recipe. That's what's left over on the 4.5. So I'm only using the half that's left over that is part of a 2/3 of a cup. So 2 times 1 is 2, 3 times 2 is 6. If I simplify that, 2 goes into 6 3 times and 2 goes into 2 once. So that simplifies to 1/3 of a tablespoon that is left over. 1/3 of a tablespoon of what you would need to make a recipe is left over. So when you look at that and you read it, they're going to try to throw you off with your thinking. And when you get the answer of 4.5, the 4.5 is how many times the 2/3 will go into the 3 tablespoons. But it's asking you how much garlic is left over or how much remains. So that's how much of what you need to make one recipe is left over. Let's look at one more. The next one is pretty easy. And then after we do this, you're going to do number 12 and 13 that's in your book. So this question is another one. You're making a recipe, and it says the ingredients, the table shows the ingredients needed to make one batch of fudge. The cook has 5 cups of evaporated milk. She made the greatest number of whole batches possible. How much evaporated milk remained? So we want to know how much of the required amount, the 3/4, is remaining after. So what do we have? We know that we have 5 cups of the milk. How much do you need for each recipe? It says in our recipe that we need 3/4 of a cup. And I'm just writing this down. She has 5 cups. She needs 3/4 of a cup. So I'm going to actually divide the 5 by 3/4 of a cup, and then that's going to tell me how many of the full recipes I can make. So if I set that up, I have 5 cups divided by 3/4 of a cup. Now remember, since we're dividing a fraction, we're going to rewrite that and multiply by the reciprocal. So that equals 5, or 5/1 times the reciprocal of 3/4 is 4/3, and that equals 5 times 4 is 20. And 1 times 3 is 3. So if I have 20/3, oops, 3 goes into 20 6 times. 6 times 3 is 18. So that would be 6 2/3. Now, I'm going to make 6 whole batches with my 3/4 of a cup. So what I can get from that is 6 recipes. And I'm going to have 2/3 of 3/4 that I need left over. So of means multiply. That's what that 2/3 is right there. That's the leftover amount right here. So I have my leftover amount, 2/3, times what I need, which was the 3/4. And if I look at that now, I know I can cross simplify because 3 goes into 3 and 2 goes into 4. I'm going to simplify before I multiply. Always simplify before you multiply if you can, if you see a connection. So looking here, 3 goes into 3 one time, 2 goes into 2 one time, and 2 goes into 4 2 times. So when I multiply, 1 times 1 is 1, over 1 times 2 is 2. So that means 1/2 of a cup of what I need, or 1/2 of what I need, is left over. So the answer to that question would be 1/2 of a cup. Now, when you look at your book on page 174, the 2 questions that are at the top are the same thing. You've got here, you have 11 cups of mozzarella. For each recipe, you need 3/4 of a cup, so you're going to divide that. Whatever you get, the mixed number that you get, you're going to take the fraction amount that is remaining and multiply it by how much you need to answer how much mozzarella cheese remains. Same concept for the next one. I should have focused that before now, sorry. Where I have the ingredients for the batch of barbecue sauce. Here's all your ingredients. It says you have 9 cups of ketchup. You need 2/3 of a cup. So I'm going to take my 9, divide it by the 2/3, and then whatever answer I get as a mixed number, that mixed number, the leftover tiny portion, is going to be multiplied by how much you need and that tells you how much of a cup that is. So that's how you do it. And basically, as long as you read and understand what those numbers or those values stand for, you should be able to sort it out relatively easy. I hope that helped.